Yo, what is up guys? Sean Kober here of Performance Functional Training. I know what you're thinking, how good is this outfit? And I agree with you. The reason I'm so bright and festive today is because I'm filming this on Christmas morning. If you like this kit, head over to Pig Athletic Club Apparel and go and check those guys out. Alright, so today guys we're going to be going through the deadlift, which is the first movement in our primary movement pattern series. So the last video I did an introduction to those movement patterns, which are gait, hinge, squat, lunge, push, pull, twist or rotate. Okay, today we're going to be going through the hinge, or what's also known as a bend. Alright, I refer to this as a deadlift. Now the name deadlift originally came from, or is rumored to have come from, the battlefields back in the day. So obviously battles would occur, soldiers would die, other soldiers would come in afterwards and lift the dead, carry them back to their lines for burial. Alright, now the deadlift is one of the most functional exercises that we can do in everyday life. One of my favorite stories, I can't remember where I heard this from, but essentially it goes a little something like this. There's a GP and a strength and conditioning coach chatting. The GP says, why do you have your clients deadlifting? It's dangerous, it's going to hurt their back, etc., etc. And the strength and conditioning coach turns around and says, what about the 70-year-old lady who takes her groceries from her car to her front door, puts the bags down, unlocks the door, picks her bags back up, carries them inside? Okay, that is a deadlift. The difference is you tell them not to do it, I teach them how to do it correctly. All right, so that's what we're going to be focusing on in the deadlift today. Now, we're going to spend all of this series going through the deadlift. I'm going to do another series afterwards that goes into accessory work. So think about the movement patterns. This is a hinge, so we're looking at driving the hips back, loading the posterior chain. Okay, you can do other exercises that load the posterior chain as well. Things like glute bridges, hip thrusts, Nordic curls, razor curls, back extensions, things like that. All right, we're going to cover those in another video series. We're going to focus on simply lifting something from the ground, putting something back onto the ground today. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because a lot of the principles for the deadlift or the hinge are going to carry over into all of our other exercises. One of the first things we need to talk about is the ability to create stability, create intramuscular tension, which is how hard you can get certain muscles firing, and then intermuscular tension and coordination, which is linking all of those muscles through the body together to create stability and then produce force. All right, so the 3 deadlift variations that I'm going to go through today, there's 4, including the trap bar, but I was filming at the other gym. It was a little bit too noisy, so I had to come over here. Unfortunately, I don't have a trap bar in this gym, but again, the same principles apply. So the deadlifts I'm going to cover today are conventional deadlift, sumo deadlift, and Romanian deadlift. Now, why do we have these different variations? Okay, these are all bilateral, meaning 2 legs at a time. 2 legs, 2 arms. You can do single leg work as well. All right, single leg, single arm. Okay, you can use kettlebells, you can use dumbbells, you can use all of these different tools, but I'm going to teach you how to use the barbell bilateral, okay, so we can produce the most amount of force. So, why are we deadlifting? The reason I choose a deadlift, everything has a purpose, everything has an intent. I'm choosing specific exercise for my training session because I'm trying to achieve something. And if I'm choosing a deadlift, it is to target posterior chain, build strength, build stability, build tension, build control through all of those muscles through the posterior chain. All right, so let me give you an example of what I mean by this. And this is going to, my intent is going to determine the type of deadlift variation that I'm going to choose. Okay, so you'll see some people that deadlift like this. You'll see some people that deadlift like this, and everywhere in between. Okay, neither of those is wrong. They just have a different purpose. All right, think about the different muscles that are firing in different positions. So there's something called motor unit recruitment patterns. Okay, muscles don't always fire same muscles, same position, same time, same order, etc. If I'm in this position here, I'm in more of a squat position, so my quads are going to be a lot more loaded. Okay, my quads are going to be loaded, probably a little bit more work through my lower back here. When I drive the hips back, now my hamstrings are loaded, hamstrings and glutes. Okay, a little bit less strain on my lower back. When I grab the bar, I'm going to be able to set my shoulder blades in a much better position. Okay, it doesn't really matter what variation you choose, as long as you understand the implications of the different variations, what you want to be loading specifically. All right, and as long as your spine stays in a nice neutral position. All right, so let's go through the setup for the deadlift. So deadlift is, again, an excellent exercise for developing strength, posture, control, coordination through the posterior chain when done correctly. So the first thing I want to talk about is creating torque, or your ability to create torque. This essentially switches on all of the muscles in the hips and the shoulders. Think about our hips and our shoulders as the primary engines of the body. This is what provides us with most of our movement, all right? And our spine links that together. So our hips and our shoulders are ball and socket joints, particularly the hips. Let's use that as an example. Ball and socket joint. So it moves in multiple directions, okay? Elbow joint, it's just a hinge. Knee joint, it's just a hinge. Only moves in one direction, okay? Flexion, extension. Hip, multiple directions. So how do I create stability? How do I create force? I need to get all the muscles surrounding the hip engaged. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to focus on creating some internal torque. So what I'm going to do is, let me get rid of that bar for a second. What I'm going to do, plant my feet hip width. I'm going to grip the ground. Pretend there's an elastic band between my toes, my big toes. Okay, my heels are going to stay planted. Then I'm going to grip my feet into the ground, grip my feet into the ground. I'm going to screw out as if I'm trying to turn my toes away from each other. This is called external rotation. Okay, what happens here is the arches of my feet build, boom. Now my joints are in a good position. This is particularly useful for people who have flat feet and their arches collapse. When your arches collapse, valgus knee, that knee drops in as well, okay? So the feet are off, hips are off. We want to start switching them on. So to warm up, grip the ground, screw, drive those knees out, okay? What happens here is my glutes also switch on my hip rotators, grip, screw. As I get into this position, I'm going to shorten the distance between belly button and sternum. Think about, point the dick. Glutes are on now, okay, abs are on. Now I'm going to hold this position, 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Okay, shake it out. So I might do 3 sets, 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. Okay, I'm just showing you 5 seconds just as a demonstration explanation. All right, so this is the first thing we want to do is create torque from the ground. Okay, we use the ground to grip and screw into that. That gets all the muscles of the hips firing. Now, this is an important concept because we create the same torque through the shoulders. A lot of people when they deadlift, yeah, they're active through the lower body, but when they start deadlifting, their upper back is rounded out, okay, and the traps shrug their shoulders up. Same principles apply. When I grip the bar, I'm going to grip, screw, boom. This pulls my shoulder blades down into a good position, gets my lats firing, okay? And again, I want to think about linking all of those muscles through the body together. The more muscles I have firing, the more stability I'm going to create, the more force I can produce. All right, so let's have a look at our setup for the conventional deadlift. Conventional deadlift, where a lot of people go wrong is they set their feet too wide here, okay, and then their hands have to go super wide, and it looks a little something like this. Look what happens to my knees here. My knees drive in, my arms are way out here, okay. I want to create as much stability as I can, stack the joints. All right, so my feet go hip width, everything moves in one direction. From here, my shins are in close to the bar. This forces me to drive my hips back. Common issue I see is people squatting the hinge, where they get into this position, drive the knees forward. Now they have to fight to get the barbell around their knees. We want to be as efficient as possible, okay? Best way from A to B is in a straight line. So I'm going to drive my hips back so my knees, so the bar can clear my knees. All right, let's go back to the setup. Feet hip width, shins in close to the bar, essentially touching. Okay, think about the bar being over the top of your shoelaces. From here, I'm going to create that grip and screw. Boom, grip, screw. Now my hips are on. I might just hold that for a second, then I'm going to drive those hips back. This is a hinge. Watch what happens to my knees. My arches are built, my knees drive out. This then determines where my hands go. All right, so again, grip, screw, hips on, drive those knees back, hips are loaded, then my hands go here. All right, watch what happens to my arms. Watch what happens to my arms here. Okay, again, grip, screw, Boom. If I do this position correctly, as I screw the shoulders, I switch on the back, get my shoulders active, that bar is going to slightly lift off the ground. This takes the slack off the bar and allows me to produce high amounts of stability, so I can then produce high amounts of force. All right, so again, grip screw, hips go back, knees drive out, hands go outside the knees, grip screw through the shoulders. What I'm doing here, turn the eyes of the elbows forward, pulling my shoulder blades down away from my ears. All right, so this is what it's going to look like. Nice and smooth, nice and controlled. Grip screw, hips, shoulders, stand tall. Bars moving, nice vertical path. All right, so point to note is the movement should look the same on the way up as it looks on the way down, or vice versa. Okay, so when we come down, common issue is people drive the knees forward. We want to drive the hips back. Just remember, we're loading posterior chain. Let's have a look at that from the side. So once the bar gets heavy, we shift to the bar, not the other way around. Step in close, grip screw through the hips and build the arches of the feet. Drive those hips back, hands come down. From here, set your position. I can be here, I can be here. As long as your spine's in a good position, doesn't matter. Spine's in alignment as well. I see a lot of people deadlifting like this. Okay, keep your spine in alignment. That tells the brain that everything's stacked, everything's safe. We can upregulate force production. All right, so again, grip screw, hips go back. I'm loaded, posterior chain. Create that torque through the shoulders. Hips go back, bar path vertical. All right, so that is the conventional deadlift. I'm not going to talk sets and reps here, but a general guideline is if I'm working for strength, I'm typically going to be working 3 to 6 reps. If I want a little bit more hypertrophy, muscle growth, I'm probably going to load up 8 to 12 reps. Okay, a little bit more endurance, probably going to do 15 to 20 reps plus. All right. So that is the conventional deadlift. Same principles apply for the other 2 deadlift variations that we're going to go through, which is the Sumo Deadlift and the Romanian Deadlift. All right. Before we go into that, next thing I want to talk about is hook grip. Hook grip is an excellent technique for taking some load off the wrist. If you're doing 15 to 20 reps of a deadlift, all right, these muscles here are going to burn out before these big muscles here. So the hook grip is essentially where we hook our thumb and then we link our fingers in over the top to then create a nice stable, like a vice. All right, so I'd recommend when you're doing warm-up sets, just practicing the movement, practice the hook grip. It can be a little bit uncomfortable to start with, but over time it's going to allow you to build some strength and resilience in the thumb and in the wrist. All right, so if we warm-up sets, do that. Next thing I'll talk about is the mixed grip. Okay, so the mixed grip is an excellent technique for creating a little bit more stability and being able to lift a little bit more weight. The issue with that is one hand's in internal rotation, or one shoulder, sorry, internal rotation, other shoulder, external rotation. All right, so the externally rotated shoulder is going to be in a better position. We've got more muscles firing through the back to hold the joint in that position. All right, what's going to happen there is we might create some sort of imbalance. So it's important when we go through our warm-up sets, our build-up sets, up to our heavy working sets, that we alternate. Okay, most people are a little bit stronger on one side than the other. So practice your hook grip first. Let's say I'm building up to 200 kilo deadlift. Okay, I might do 60 kilos with a hook grip, 80 kilos hook grip, 100 kilos hook grip, 120 kilos hook grip. Once I start getting up towards 140, 160 kilos, then I'm going to go mixed grip. Okay, 140, 160, 180. Then as this becomes an issue, then I might throw straps on. All right. That's a topic for another video though, so I'm not going to go into too much detail there. But basically, a lot of people say if you can't lift the weights without using straps, then you shouldn't be lifting that weight at all. Okay, I think that's bullshit. Again, you've got these little fucking muscles here supporting biggest, strongest muscles of the body. So if that's a limiting factor and you're not getting as much out of it and you're worried about your grip strength and losing that grip rather than activating the right muscles, right order at the right time, then you're missing out. All right, so that's enough on that. Let's move on to the sumo deadlift. So sumo deadlift is an excellent exercise also for taking a little bit of load off the spine, getting a little bit more engagement and activation through the hips, and it can be, I typically find it's a better technique to teach people initially. All right, my first order of teaching is typically going to be a trap bar deadlift, which unfortunately I don't have here, then a sumo deadlift, then a Romanian deadlift, then a conventional deadlift. All right, so next one, let's go through sumo deadlift. Foundations are basically the same. This time, however, my feet are going to go wide. I'm going to turn my toes out. My hands are inside. Okay, feet wide, as wide as you feel comfortable. I'm going to grip screw. I'm not going to get as much activation here, okay, but I'm going to drive those knees out. Again, shins in close to the bar. I'm going to drive those knees out over the little toes. My chest is going to stay a little bit taller, all right? So a little bit more load through the hips, a little bit more load through the quads. Drive those hips back first, then down, then hands go inside. Hands shoulder width this time. And again, grip screw feet, grip screw shoulders, chest through, shoulders back, active, bar moves, nice vertical path. All right, now something you probably saw me do there, and that was my breathing. We'll talk about that for a moment. I'm using something called the Valsalva maneuver. This is basically when I'm holding my breath, create intramuscular tension throughout the core whilst I'm moving. All right, so again, brace, create stability, produce more force. So how do we do this? You can either breathe at the top or at the bottom, or both. I typically choose to breathe at the top, particularly once I start getting into my heavy sets. All right, that's because in the bottom position, if I exhale, then I'm going to lose that position, I'm going to lose that tension, I'm going to lose that torque, then I'm going to have to reset and produce that force again. All right, so typically I'm going to breathe at the bottom for the first rep, boom, hit the top, exhale, in, tension, touch, drive. Okay, so that's a touch and go deadlift. This is what I typically teach because it teaches people how to control the movement up, control the movement down whilst maintaining tension. Then we can also look at what the plates are doing on either side. If one side touches before the other side every time, then likely going to be some imbalances there that we can start addressing. Maybe hips are shifting one side, protecting an injury, have some compensation patterns, etc., etc. All right, so be analytical of all of your movements and how the bar is moving every single time. Let's have a look at the sumo deadlift from the side. All right, so again, I approach the bar. We're getting into our heavy sets now. Take those feet nice and wide. Wherever you feel comfortable, turn those toes out, shins touching, drive the knees out, hips go back. Loaded, hands shoulder width. I'm going to take a deep breath here. As I take a deep breath, I'm going to grip screw, create that torque through the shoulders, engage everything at once. All right, so that is the sumo deadlift. And again, using those same sets and reps. I won't go into rest periods and all that sort of stuff in this video series. I'll do that in another video series down the track. All right, so that's the sumo deadlift. So sumo deadlift, a little bit more hip activation, external rotators. Most people in society these days quite weak through the hips, particularly through that external rotation and abduction. All right, so I'm typically going to get most of my clients doing a sumo deadlift. All right. Last deadlift variation is going to be my Romanian deadlift. So Romanian deadlift, again, excellent exercise. This time we're looking to produce a little bit more activation and target the hamstrings and the glutes a little bit more. All right. Romanian deadlift starts from the top. So we're going to conventional deadlift up, set ourselves up. As we hinge, all right, hips stay high here. There's not much bend in the knees. Hips stay high. I'm going to hinge. I go as low as my hamstrings allow me to. What that means is I'm not trying to reach for the ground, okay? My hamstrings are at their lengthened position here. I can't go any further. My back is in a tight, neutral position. If my hamstrings are at their length and I try and reach for the ground, all I'm doing is creating that space in my lumbar spine, which is not ideal. Okay, again, we want the muscles working, not to sit in the joints, all right? The muscles are what control the joints and get them going through their movements, their articulations. All right, so when I hinge here, typical for gravity to start pulling my shoulders forward. I want to square myself up, chest through, shoulders back. Again, pull those shoulder blades down and back. As I hinge down, I want to create more and more torque. All right, so this is what the Romanian deadlift is going to look like. Same setup. I walk up to the bar, set myself up, grip screw, conventional deadlift up. From here, actually, let me do that again. I'm going to use a hook grip. All right, thumb goes under, fingers go over the top. Step in, grip screw through the feet, through the hips, through the shoulders. From here, drive those knees out. Hips are on, then I hinge. Nice and slow. Bar goes straight down. Nice vertical bar path. Hit that bottom position, pause. Think about your breathing. Deep breath in. Again, breathe at the top. This is what that's going to look like from the side. All right, grip screw through the hips, through the shoulders. All right, so that is the Romanian deadlift. Far more activation through the hamstrings there, particularly in that lengthened position. All right, hamstrings loaded up in that lengthened position. As we stand tall, glutes start taking over. Boom, hit the top, tuck the tailbone under, get those glutes firing. All right, guys, so those are the deadlifts that I typically like to teach, as well as the trap bar. Trap bar is probably a little bit easier to teach because, again, you don't have to fight to get that bar around the knees. You stand inside and your shoulders are in a neutral position. This one here, we're in an overgrasp position, okay, internally rotated. Sometimes we'll use that mixed grip, sometimes we're gonna use straps. All right, trap bar deadlift, you stand inside the hexagonal bar, same principles apply, okay. I still want my middle fingers running in line with the shins. That's what I was going to say. That's what I forgot. Most people, when they deadlift, they hit this top position, they roll the shoulders and they arch their back. All right, do not fucking do that. That is no good for the shoulder joint. That is no good for the lumbar spine. I'm looking at a deadlift to focus on posterior chain. Okay, primarily hips and hamstrings. What I don't want to happen is I'm arching my back. Okay, that just loads up my spinal erectors. My spinal erectors are erectors of the spine. They're fucking stabilizing muscles, not movement producing muscles. My movement producing muscles should be my hips, my hamstrings. All right, so stand tall at the top, boom, tuck the tailbone under, glutes on. You shouldn't feel it in your lower back here. If you're sticking the chest through, arching your back, you're just gonna load up your spine with these massive compressive forces. All right, so those are the deadlift variations that I'm going to teach you today. Everyone should be deadlifting. Everyone needs to know how to pick shit up off the ground, put things back down onto the ground with good technique. All right, it's just a matter of choosing which one of those variations is going to be best for you. And this is where kind of experimenting a little bit with maybe with your warm up, going through those different deadlift techniques, different variations to see what's going to work best for you. Yeah, if I want to target my hamstrings a little bit more, then of course I'm going to choose the Romanian deadlift. All right, if I want a little bit more hip activation, I'm probably going to choose hip and quad activation. I'm probably going to choose the Sumo Deadlift. Okay, for me, the conventional deadlift I don't do very much because it puts a lot of strain on my lower back. But that's a good point, guys. Every single person's got different morphology, different bone structure, different limb lengths, etc., etc. So all of these factors come into play with which deadlift variation is going to work best for you. All right, so think about what the focus of the training session is. Primarily, if I'm deadlifting, I'm focusing on building strength, tension, control through the posterior chain. All right, don't take an excellent strength building exercise for the whole body and turn it into a shitty conditioning exercise by doing fucking 30 reps for time. All right. That is the deadlift. Next video series, we're going to be going through the squat. And again, same principles apply, guys. So take note of creating torque in the hips, creating torque in the shoulders, linking that together through the spine, through the spine by engaging everything through the core. All of these movements that we're going to be going through are compound movements. They are the primary movement patterns or primal movement patterns. We're looking to load up all the muscles of the body. All right. Yes, the deadlift is primarily lower body focused exercise, but we want the most amount of muscles firing through the entire body to again create that stability, create that control, that intramuscular and intermuscular coordination. Same when we go down to the squat. Most people look at the squat as a lower body exercise, and yes, it is. Okay, but I need to create that tension through my shoulders as well. The more muscles firing, the more stability you have, the more force you can produce. More force equals more muscle, more energy burn. All right, that is the deadlift. Peace out, guys. Have a good day.